So they left the tomb with fear and great joy. I don't do spooky. It's a little bit of a running joke in the Urriola-Schonewolf household that Ian does not do spooky, which honestly is a bit of a bummer for Joe, who really loves to engage with the macabre. Joe loves to listen to horror and true crime podcasts. They know all the gruesome details about every major serial killer, and then they get all bent out of shape because I mix up Ted Dahmer and Jeffrey Bundy. Joe didn't think anyone would get that one. But Joe loves spooky stuff. Me, not so much. And it's not just true crime or serial killer trivia either. A couple of years ago, when we were still living in Virginia, Joe had a pretty major surgery just before the holidays. And on New Year's Day, we woke up and Joe declared that we were going to have our first big post-surgery adventure that day. So we packed up the car and drove over to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, with one goal: to visit the Mothman Museum. Charles, can we see the next slide? There is Joe in all of their glory, mere weeks after a partial colectomy, living their best life with our dear friend, Mothman. And horror movies? Forget it. But Joe loves them. I'm going to Chicago this week on some business, and while I'm gone, I'm sure that Joe will be spending all of their free time watching scary movies on the entirely separate Hulu user profile that they made that they called Joe Watches Scary Things, just to keep that energy away from our shared user profile, because Ian does not do spooky. I don't like the feeling of it or the tension of it. I don't like what it does to my imagination when the lights go out and my brain starts to fill in the gaps. I would much rather keep a safe distance away from anything that feels unsettling, unknown, or just a little too close to the edge of what I can control. We all have our own ways of dealing with things that unsettle us, the things that shake us, the things that get our hearts racing. Some of us might lean in like Joe does, and others might avoid it altogether like I do, but either way, that reaction comes from the same place. Something deep within us, recognizing that something isn't quite right, that something is off. I say all of this because if you happen to find yourself in the former camp, if you're like Joe and you like to lean into the spooky and embrace that scary vibe, then Matthew's account of the resurrection is for you. Matthew's telling of this story is just a little bit strange. It doesn't keep its distance from the unsettling. Matthew doesn't clean things up neatly or skip past the hard parts. He doesn't move quickly from death to celebration like some cinematic scene change. Matthew brings us right to the edge of it. He gives us an earthquake, an angel whose appearance is like lightning, guards who are shaking, paralyzed with fear, and a tomb that smells of death. And in the middle of all of it, Matthew tells us they left the tomb with fear and great joy. Fear and great joy. Not one and then the other, not fear replaced by joy, but both held together. I think that is what Easter teaches us. Easter, friends, doesn't take fear away. Instead, it teaches us how to carry it. Because pay attention to what the angel tells the women here. Before telling them to go and quickly tell the others that Jesus has been raised, the angel tells them to pause, to linger just a little bit longer at the tomb, to lean in rather than avoid the horror. Come into the tomb. Come into this place of death. Come and see the place where he lay. It's not move right along, or let's not worry about it anymore, or let's just focus on the good news now. It's come and see the place where he lay. We know what these kinds of tombs look like, don't we? There are plenty of tombs all around us. But what happens next in the story depends on what our encounter with those tombs do to us. Because not all fear works the same way. Fear, as it turns out, can end us, or fear can send us. That's what Matthew shows us in the story. Because on the one hand, we have the guards, and on the other, we've got the women. Both experience the same earthquake. Both experience the same angel. Both experience the same empty tomb. And Matthew uses the same word to describe both of their responses: fear. But that fear leads to two wildly different outcomes. The guards, Matthew tells us, shake. They're overcome. In his words, they've become like dead men. It's a fear that shuts them down and freezes them right in place, a fear that leaves them unable to move or to respond, unable to do anything but collapse under the weight of what they have just witnessed. The kind of fear that says, this is the end. This is too much. But then Matthew gives us the women. And make no mistake, the women are afraid too. We shouldn't try to clean that up. The women are not composed or calm. They're not standing there trying to pretend that they have everything figured out. The women are afraid. And yet the women run. They left the tomb quickly, Matthew says, not because their fear is gone, but because something else is now present alongside it: fear and great joy. Let me be clear. Resurrection doesn't remove fear from our lives. Resurrection transforms it. Resurrection takes the kind of fear that paralyzes, the kind of fear that ends, and turns it into the kind of fear that sends. Because the difference isn't the absence of fear. The difference is who meets them in their fear and where he is. Listen to what the angel says. He is not here. He is not here. He's not where you expect him to be, not where you wanted to find him, not where you were sure the story had ended. He is not here. He is going on ahead of you to Galilee. He is not here because he's already ahead of you. Resurrection is not something that we can stop and stay and stare at. It's not something we can contain or turn into a monument that we can revisit every once in a while. Because Christ moves, resurrection moves. Before the women have time to process or make sense of what they've just seen, Christ is already on the road, already waiting for them in the place that they came from, in the life that they thought they had left behind, in the place where they least expected him to be. And if we zoom out just a little bit, this is exactly what Matthew has been telling us all along. That Christ is never found in the places where we expect him to be. We don't find Christ born in a palace, but in borrowed places. We don't find Christ among the powerful, but among the overlooked, among the least of these, not able to be contained by the categories that we try to place him in. And now, even now, death cannot hold him where we expect him to stay. He is not here. He's gone on ahead of you, already on the move and refusing to be contained by death. In other words, friends, resurrection doesn't deny the reality of death. Resurrection denies death's authority. That is why fear and joy can exist together, not because everything is okay or because everything suddenly makes sense, not because the world has become safe and predictable and understandable again, but because Christ is risen, there is joy that stands alongside our fear. Joy because Christ is already ahead of us. Joy because we know that death does not get to decide how our story ends. And if that is true, if death is not ultimate, and if Christ is already ahead of us, then just like the women, we cannot stay at the tombs of our lives. We can't build our lives there. We can't make our home in the places where things have ended. We can't wait until the fear goes away before we move. We, like the women, go. Afraid, yes, and full of great joy. We don't have to wait for our fear to disappear before we bear witness to the resurrection. We don't have to wait until everything feels certain or safe, or resolved. But we go as we are, carrying our fear and great joy together, trusting that Christ is already ahead of us, and that somewhere along the road, he will meet us too. So may the one who began a good work be faithful to complete it in us. The work continues, friends. Amen.